Hi, I'm Bailey McGuire, and welcome back to another video for the Art Center. Today we're going to be interviewing Bill Fredrick, and then we're going to showcase some of his work. I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. Alright, can we start with your name and how long you've been a member of the Art Center?
William Fredrick, or I go by Bill, and I've been here, time flies when you're having fun, but I think 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly. But.
Alright. How long have you been doing art?
About a year longer than I was doing. I started, actually I got started with buying a sawmill, but I got into art when I got bored with cutting dimensional lumber, and I started doing charcuterie boards, and I did that for about a year before I actually joined the Art Center. So, about 6 years or so.
Okay. So you just worked with wood before?
Not to a great degree. I mean, I did minor do-it-yourself projects and built some, small structures, and I wasn't really a woodworker per se, and I only got into doing the epoxy river tables as an offshoot of buying a sawmill. Like I said, I got bored with doing dimensional lumber, and I figured, what am I going to do with all the rest of the material that I've got stacked up here? And then I was on YouTube and found epoxy river tables that looked interesting to me. So I tell people it took me, probably 6 months to a year and maybe $1,000 or $2,000 worth of epoxy, of making mistakes and learning how to do it before I felt comfortable to start producing items for sale.
Well, I mean, they're beautiful.
Thank you.
They really are.
Yeah, there's something magnetic. Everybody looks at it and they have to walk up and touch it.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just like, I guess it's just the clear coat on it. It doesn't really look like a clear coat. It looks like you could just feel.
Right, it has like a three-dimensional look to it.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I have fun with it.
It looks like fun. Was being an artist always in the plan, or?
No, I think I've thought about that because I've been asked that many times, and I didn't really, as a youth, start out as an artist. I think my mom enrolled me in an art class when I was about 12, but I think that was mainly to keep me out of trouble. And I didn't pursue that because I got involved in athletics where I excelled. And then after my education, finishing college, pretty much was devoted to my career, and which was in coatings, incidentally. So that did help me with the epoxy and working with that. But it wasn't really until, like I said, I bought the sawmill and was in a quandary as to what to do with all this lumber that I was producing. And so YouTube was a wonderful source. I found that. I found a couple artists, what I consider artists, that make $20,000, $30,000 conference tables and things like that. Big stuff. And I mean, even some of the stuff's not that big, but it's expensive. But they've got the name and they charge accordingly. So I'm just a small-time artist, so my items are much more reasonably priced, which I do, by the way, mostly do custom work. I have a large display here, which they allow me, and I also exhibit in Madison at the Art on Main. But and I do sell a fair amount of items from the art store, but I would say most of my working efforts are on custom pieces, where I'm making custom bar tops or tables, coffee tables, kitchen islands. I mean, pretty much anything you can dream up, I could probably build.
Wow. Did you go to college?
Yes, I had started out in engineering. Probably should have went into architecture. My son did, and I enjoyed working with him as he went through his college years and the projects. So I think I kind of saw I had some interest in art even back then, but my degree was in business, and so I pursued that and was successful in my career in the coatings industry.
Um, who has been your biggest inspiration to do what you do?
My inspiration probably as a life inspiration, probably my mother. And I just happened to think of that on the way down. Inspiration for my artistic ability. My parents, my dad was an entrepreneur. He started several small businesses, but the one business that I reflected back on was their selling cemetery monuments and markers. You don't think of that as very artistic, but back in the days, they were one of the pioneers of using. They actually did like farm scenes of on a monument that was unheard of in the days back in the 60s and 70s, and they evolved into using laser. And I mean, some of the stuff that my brother is now taken over the business and doing. It's remarkable. You know, some of these war veteran memorials and things that are done just blow me away what they're able to do. So
Yeah, I mean, whenever I think of like those kinds of monuments, I think of up in Madison because of all the like sculptures and statues they have, and they really are beautiful. Um,
yeah, I mean they've had carved statues and things like that for a long time, but the putting scenery on a stone, that to me, and people love it, and it makes it much more personal that way. And I think it helps with the healing process of losing a loved one.
yeah, yeah, having something beautiful to remember someone by, I think that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what made you want to be an artist?
Want to be an artist? I guess necessity. I had all this lumber. I wanted to do something with it. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, if I go back to my art class at 12, I wasn't very good at drawing bowls of fruit. So that type of artist I'm not. But um, I enjoy uh, several things in what I do. But when I use my sawmill, when I first cut a log, opening up a log and seeing the grain that nature has provided in the different pieces of wood, it's like when I first started using a sawmill, I was cutting dimensional lumber. So I was going to the woods and I'd look for nice straight trees, usually cut dead or down trees. Um, and that was great for dimensional lumber, but for the epoxy river tables, now when I go into the woods, I'm looking for all the crooked branches and twisted branches. They're a lot more difficult to cut and keep them in the sawmill, but they give you unique pieces of wood that you're just not going to find anywhere else, because most sawmills would throw that stuff away. They wouldn't even consider trying to cut it because it's too difficult and time consuming. But I know what I'm looking for, so I take a different attitude when I look at cutting a piece of wood. The epoxy is much more predictable, using the colors, and I know what I'm going to produce pretty much. It is time consuming because the epoxy is a two component, so it does go through a chemical curing process, and as it thickens, you're able to create some lines in it or waves or um, some irregularities in it. But if you walk away from it, depending on how far you are in the curing process, that'll dissipate and go away. So you got to keep at it, and it's generally takes about 4 hours of babysitting it until you get it to where it stays what you do with it as far as um, the irregularities that you see in it, or the design, if you will. Takes about that long before it sets up and is comfortable. The acrylics that I got into doing, and that was again kind of like driven by necessity. The epoxies, when I tried, you might have seen the one piece I I call it my geode. It's actually a perpendicular cut of a log. Instead of cutting it lengthwise, I cut it vertically. And so you produce a round piece. Well, this tree, when I felled it, was actually hit by lightning, so it started a fire inside the tree instead of blowing it up or blowing the bark off. It just started a fire inside. So it's very deeply charred. And the first thing I thought when I saw it is I could make a geode out of it. So I proceeded to try and do that, but the epoxy colors melded together too much. So I tried acrylics, and I found that to be much more favorable as far as retaining the color differentiation. And I made several of those and have won lots of awards with that because it's so unique. And but working with the acrylics spurred me to, actually my one buddy said, I like the geode background, but he said the wood doesn't fit my decor. Can you just do the background? That's pretty easy to do. That's the easy part of it, relatively. So I did several pieces of that, and then a year ago when we had the solar eclipse, we had a regional, or not a regional, but a monthly show. I think it was entitled "The Solar Eclipse and Space Beyond," and so I created several different. I kind of got crazy. I think I did about 20 different pieces of nebula, which is far out space, which is enormous area of gas and dust particles, and you get different colorations, and it's just, I think, beautiful. I was able to recreate that, my version of it, using acrylic pour techniques, and like I said, I did multiples of those, and then that led me, as I was doing like Chautauqua down in Madison, the regional art show down there that's well known. I did it a year prior, and I just had my epoxy tables, and they're relatively expensive, and it's not something people are going to carry home typically. So I was thinking I had to have something else that the general public walking by could afford, and it was easier to carry. And then I happened across another YouTube video on how to make acrylic jewelry. So utilizing the same pour techniques that I use for my acrylic nebula, I was able to create some jewelry, and that I sell pieces of that every month at both locations. So that's kind of my sustaining revenue stream, if you will. Not the big stuff. I mean, as far as the sales from the art centers. So it's been an interesting journey through the different types of resins and colorations and wood.
How do you think your art fits in at the art center?
How do I fit my...
How do you think your art fits in at the art center?
Fits into the art center? Not very well. It's too big. Actually, that was a complaint that the Madison Art Center had when they came and visited my display here. They said, there's no way we can give you that much space. But this location is, we're blessed to have a fairly large art center here, and they've been accommodating to me with the large pieces of art that I have, and have given me a substantial space in the back room. We kind of call that our man cave back there. But this art center has so many different unique media artists that I think really sets it apart from many other art centers. So the addition of what I do, nobody else does that here. There's other wood turners that we have, but nobody else does the epoxy like I do. So it is another unique aspect of art that this art center is able to display that not many art centers have the ability to do. So rather than just displaying small charcuterie boards, I have several coffee tables back there. They wouldn't let me bring in a dining table, that just wouldn't fit. But I have multiple pieces here, so it's like I said, it's my main showroom for my work.
Yeah. What has the art center done for you in terms of your art career?
Well, they've allowed me to continue on. Like I said, this allows me to showcase my artwork, and I kind of use this as my showroom for my custom work customers, that they can come in and see examples of what I do. If I had this, excuse me, if I had a display like I have here in my pole barn out in the country, I'm not sure I would see many people coming through to visit my art. So it's really been a venue. It's benefited both the Art Center in terms of the variation of art that they're able to present to the general public. And to me personally, it's allowed me a venue to showcase my art. People come in and see it. Oh, this is beautiful, but I need it this much bigger, or I want it this tall instead of this tall. And so I'm able to customize pieces to what their needs are.
So you help out each other.
Pardon?
You help out each other.
Yes.
Yes. What is your favorite part of being an artist?
Creating. I think making custom pieces, I think, is probably the most creative aspect, where people come to me and they have an idea on what they want. I just had a woman recently from Kentucky sent me some pictures, and I'm sure it was AI generated, but it was a kitchen that had slabs of live edge that had to be 4 or 5 inches thick. And I said, trees don't grow that way. But I mean, it looked really nice, but again, it was an AI generated piece, but she wants me to recreate that in a kitchen for her. And I mean, these pieces were massive. Like I said, they were 5 or 6 inches thick, and they had to be, at least 26 inches wide, and probably a bit more. And there aren't many trees in southern Indiana that grow that big. But just trying to take people's ideas and come up with solutions for them that satisfy what their intent is from the design standpoint, and also to fit it into their budget. So I can make suggestions on things to make it more cost effective for them.
Yeah, I think that's cool that you can make people's visions come to life, because not everyone can do that. I'm sure it's really good for business, because you can basically do most anything that someone asks you to do.
Well, and that's the feedback that I get, is that my customers tell me, well, we've talked to several people and nobody wants to mess around with what we want to do. And, you're the first person that listened to what we wanted and was able to formulate something that's kind of along the line of what we envision, and you're able to work with this. And so I find that rewarding.
Yeah, I could see how that is rewarding. You make people happy. It gives you creative outlet. It's a win-win scenario.
Right.
What do you think classifies a piece of art?
What do
you think classifies a piece of art as art?
That's been an interesting question. They say art is in the eye of the beholder. We have a juried committee here that reviews art. We used to do it as a board member, would vote on artists, but we had disagreements, of course. Somebody would like a piece of art and somebody else thought it was junk or it was a craft. And I think the biggest distinction we have is trying to distinguish when a craft, becomes art, or does it cross over to becoming a craft? There's a fine line there, and we as a board didn't feel that we were adequately skilled as far as education to know what art is and what is not. So we went into our membership to those people that had the training in art, so they could better distinguish the differences between the two. Because we're trying to maintain the art center at a high level. We don't want it to become, a weekend flea market kind of thing. And we want our art to be at a higher level than that, certainly. And I think it is well represented here. And so we've gone the route of the jury committee. Other art centers have different means of determining what is art, but that's always been a curious question, and I'm not sure anyone has the answer. Like I said, the best answer to me is the art is in the eye of the beholder. So it doesn't matter what I think. If you like something and you think it's art, that's all that counts.
Absolutely. I think art is subjective. Not everyone's going to think something is art, but it doesn't really matter what their opinion is. If you like it and if you think that's art, then it's art.
It's your money. You can buy what you want.
Absolutely. If you could tell any young artist out there anything, what would it be?
Perseverance, I guess, I think is probably one of the most important things. Say, follow your dreams. That's can be a lot of different things. But if you want to do art, let's talk about the starving artist. There's a reason for that. You're not going to start creating art that's saleable at the very beginning, but that doesn't mean that you should stop creating art. If you're persistent and you put forth the effort, you can be self-taught, you can take classes, you can take formal education. All of those avenues may get you to some endpoint where you're creating saleable art. But being an artist, I think you have to be self-gratified in what you're doing. So you can make art and sell it, but not be gratified yourself in what you've done, that you've created something nice. You do it because you're making money, but you're not enjoying it, and you don't get the gratification from the same as someone else who maybe isn't selling the art, but is really pleased with the artwork that they produce. So what's important is the gratification that you feel as an individual, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really important to enjoy what you're making and what you're producing. Because if you don't, then how can you expect someone else to enjoy it?
Correct.
It's kind of like the saying, you have to love yourself before someone else can. You have to like what you do in order for other people to like what you do.
And if you like what you're doing and you're enjoying it, then it's not work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it shows in the quality of your work. Yeah, this is what I started making. It was one of the, not this particular piece, but charcuterie boards, the small ones, is what I started making initially, just to figure out all the nuances of how epoxy worked in curing, and then utilizing the top coat. Some people like the glossy finish, some prefer more of a matte finish. The people that prefer the matte finish don't use a clear. They wind up polishing the epoxy, and that just took far too long to do, because you go through about 20 different grits of sandpaper, and I could never get an acceptable finish in my mind. So the clear coat I like, and it has more depth to it, I think, and it's also more cost effective. If I had to charge what I put time in to sand this with the 20 different, nobody would have afforded it. I wouldn't sell any of them. I went into some bigger ones. They're not, like I said, again, I cut pieces of wood that nobody else would touch. So you get rather unique pieces. This one I had to do just because I wanted to see if I could do it, but this is my representation of a golf course. So you got your driver here, and an iron here, and a wedge here, and a putter here, and the green, and the sand traps.
So I like that one. That one's cool.
That was kind of fun making. I sold my nice coffee table. I had one that was an ocean scene, a beach scene, so it had the water and the different colors of the blue for the depth. It got darker as you went further out to the edge of the table. And then I actually had a sand beach. It was actual real sand on the table there. It was a nice oval table. I sold that. But these coffee tables I make in all sizes and shapes. Interestingly, I mentioned the one gentleman that did the large conference tables. He says 95% of his customers want black, but he does a solid black finish. I think that would look like paint to me, I much prefer something, this silvery black is real popular. I do that. And then black walnut's probably the most popular wood right now. This is a sample here. Interestingly, after I created this, I've had several people come and want black walnut coffee tables, but they want like a different colored epoxy. And when they see this table, they all change their mind. And I must have made, I don't know, 5 or 6 coffee tables like this where people have come in, wanted a blue or a green or something else, and then they see this table and they've all changed their mind. So it's pretty interesting. And I've gotten into doing countertops and bar, bathroom, what have you. I don't know if I've got, yeah, but you can kind of see that kind of looks like a marble. That's nothing more than MDF board with the epoxy over the top of it, but I can take and make different colors. This is what I did in our home. And then I mentioned earlier the geode. This is one of the geodes I've made, and you can see how deeply charred the wood is on the inside there. And the bark is still intact. And then this is the acrylic on the background here.
And it's charred like that because there's a fire inside of the tree.
Is it what?
It's charred like that because of the fire inside of the tree?
Because of the fire, yeah, where it actually started. Normally when lightning strikes the tree, it blows the bark off, or a lot of times it just blows the tree up. In this instance, and I had to research it to see what caused that, but it's so charred so deeply, they said it had to be a fire inside the tree that started that. So
I didn't even know that could happen.
Add crystals, and I kind of mix the colored crystals and the clear glass crystals around there to give it the geode look, if you will.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then these are examples of my nebula that I've done.
That one's gorgeous. That one's pretty.
And these are just really fun to play with.
So, do you experiment with like acrylic paint pours as well, or is it all done
This is
in
what
epoxy?
this is, acrylic pour paint.
Okay. These are beautiful.
And then miniature versions of this are my jewelry that we passed here earlier. And it's called this wearable art.
I mean, it really is.
That's the same, on a miniature scale, it's the same as the acrylic pour there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. It's just wearable art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
We got necklaces and bracelets, earring necklace sets.
Beautiful. Your work is just beautiful.
Yeah, I started calling this Serenity jewelry, and then somebody at Chicago said, well, I kept getting the same question. What kind of stone is this? What kind of stone is this? And they go, I'm changing the name to Serenity Stone.
What kind of stone is this? Oh, it's paint.
That's probably my newest creation is this piece here.
Oh, I love that piece. That one is gorgeous.
This is an epoxy resin table.
It's beautiful. I like your use of the environment. Like, you already use wood, but you also just use like flowers and cattails. Like, it's right. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, the first piece I did, I used some holly that I had growing in the front of our house, and I just took a fresh cut piece, which I knew I shouldn't have done, but I did, and it discolored, so I knew that was no good. So then I read about it, and you're supposed to dry it, so then I dried it in some silica sand, and I thought it was dry enough because I did it for like about 2 weeks. Well, it's still discolored, and so now I've left some in there for, I think it's been in there 3 months. So I said, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So that's my next project, is to make one of those before Christmas. So. That's my realm of art. Hope you enjoyed it.